I grew up with Jason Miller. We were childhood sweethearts. There were still 6 months left until our wedding when he started acting more and more off. He thought he was putting on a great performance, but the truth is, I knew from the very beginning. It started with the faint scent of orange blossom clinging to him every time he came home to our apartment. Then I caught him late at night in the study, scribbling away at notes, pages upon pages of basic knowledge. And then there were the lazy weekend afternoons, when we watched movies together. He'd often smile unconsciously at his phone, but the moment I leaned over, his body would stiffen instantly. I've always believed that once you start wondering whether something's happening, it probably already has. But after more than a decade together, our feelings weren't fake. I chose to believe I was just anxious with the wedding coming up. That was, until the end of that month. On a whim, I brought him lunch. It was nearly noon, and the lab was still tense and busy as usual. From the sea of white lab coats, I spotted Jason right away. He was bent over a microscope, observing something. Then he gently bumped his elbow against the person next to him. That person immediately leaned over to look into the microscope, their face lighting up with joy. Jason smiled faintly at them, his eyes filled with tenderness as he gazed at their side profile. That moment, I knew exactly where it all started, and what confirmed it even more was that night when I had terrible cramps. Jason, who always had a thing about cleanliness, actually made me a bowl of brown sugar water. I stood there, watching his busy silhouette, and it felt like a knife was being twisted into my heart. But I didn't get angry. Instead, I started suppressing my temper and threw myself into playing the part of a soon-to-be bride. I obsessed over what we'd eat each day, dragging him with me, full of excitement to decorate our new home. I even meticulously planned our honeymoon. Jason always smiled politely and said, "Sure, whatever you want." When the wedding was only 3 months away, I could clearly sense his growing impatience. Sometimes, when I got up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water, I'd see the faint, red glow of a cigarette burning out on the balcony. I'd deliberately rub my eyes, yawn, and pretend to be half asleep as I opened the door and asked, "What's wrong?" He'd immediately put out the cigarette, look like he wanted to say something but stopped, and then pull me into his arms as he muttered, "It's nothing, just some trouble with the experiment." I would go along and comfort him, telling him not to push himself too hard, that I'd make him some soup in the morning. The next day, he'd head out early to the lab again, and return at night with that same overpowering scent of orange blossom. It was all so blatant. We'd been together for over 10 years. I knew him too well. And he knew me just as well. He was fully aware of my pride, that I would never allow myself to marry a man who had already fallen out of love. All those half-hearted attempts to cover it up were just his way of pushing me to discover the truth, make a scene, and call off the engagement myself. After all, it was the Miller family who had begged for this engagement. Everyone in Crest Hill knew we were getting married. If this blew up, Jason would lose face. The Miller family would lose face, but this time, he miscalculated. The moment he chose to betray the relationship we had built over more than a decade, the power shifted entirely to me. If he wanted to walk away cleanly and expected me to graciously step aside and bless their relationship, there was no way. I've never been the kind of woman to be easily bullied. I wanted to watch them flail around like clowns, to make them crawl like rats, hiding from the daylight. With just 1 month and 23 days left until our wedding, the orange blossom scent on Jason grew even stronger when he came home. I curled my lips. Someone was getting nervous. The night of the wedding dress fitting, I got stood up. And the next day, the moment I arrived at the spot we had arranged to meet, I saw Jason and that younger lab assistant sitting close together. When Jason saw me take a seat, he instantly shielded the girl behind him with a protective stance. There was a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it quickly turned into determination. "Emily, I'm sorry. I've always seen you as a sister. It wasn't until I met Hannah that I understood what real love is. Our engagement was arranged by our families. We were young and didn't know any better." I looked at Jason, and suddenly an old memory flashed through my mind. How he used to stand protectively in front of me just like that, how he'd get anxious every time I so much as frowned. And now, he reduced everything we had to youthful ignorance. I couldn't help myself. I smiled. All of that was so many years ago. And something that old deserves to be thrown out like trash, along with Jason Miller. I've always been someone who looks forward, not back. So sure, I agreed to end things a little too easily, and that stunned both of them. The girl, delicate and soft like a porcelain doll, was the first to speak. "Miss Lynn," she said, "I know this must be hard for you. But I'm really sorry. Jason and I are truly in love." Only then did my eyes finally settle on this junior of his. No longer separated by a glass wall in the lab or a phone screen, she was right here. Her face was pale and doll-like, with light makeup and bright, clear eyes. And right now, she was looking at me like a winner, trying to offer comfort from her pedestal. When I stared directly at Jason, he looked a bit flustered and quickly took a small sip from the coffee cup in front of him. I gave a faint smile, stirring the coffee in front of me over and over with a spoon. The cheap hand-drip coffee had a faint sourness to it. Without thinking, I clicked my tongue. It was simply undrinkable. I put the silver spoon down and looked toward Jason, who was about to return to his family estate. The porcelain princess seemed to get emotional the moment I ignored her. Her eyes turned red as she said, "Miss Lynn, dragging this out isn't good for you either. Why do you insist on holding Jason back?" Now that's what I call clever phrasing. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up and saw a message. "Sweet fiancé, pick whichever wedding dress you like. It'll still be in time for next month's banquet." 3 photos followed. The contact name was Ethan. Word by word, he had typed that out. I couldn't help but picture the usually cold and decisive Mr. Ethan Crane, carefully typing "sweet fiancé." The thought made me curl my lips into a smile. I was in a good mood, and that made my tone toward the porcelain princess soften a bit too. "Miss White," I said, "you've misunderstood. As long as you can convince Jason's parents to call off the engagement, I honestly don't mind." Both of their faces changed at once. "My last name is Shaw," I added absent-mindedly, looking down at the dress photos. "Sorry about that, my memory's awful." Jason finally couldn't hold back. "Emily," he said, "I'm the one who owes you an apology. Let's go back to the house together tonight." Why would he want me there? Simple, because Jason didn't have the guts to say it himself. His mother was no pushover. The Miller family had a bunch of illegitimate children waiting for their chance to rise, and Jason, who majored in chemistry, was utterly useless when it came to managing the family business. It had always been me helping him behind the scenes, so he could pursue his passion. And now, Jason probably believed that because I was so deeply in love with him, I would keep helping him even after the engagement ended. "Jason, are you and Lily coming home together?" someone asked. "Lily." I couldn't help raising an eyebrow. Jason looked equally stunned. His mother had just returned from a business trip abroad, but it was like I didn't even exist. She walked straight past me and went right to Lily, holding her hand and sitting down affectionately on the couch with her. And there I was, completely ignored, the official fiancé, left off to the side. Well, temporarily official fiancé. The porcelain princess blushed shyly, biting her lip as her cheeks turned a pretty shade of red. Jason's mother quickly turned to me and said, "Emily, you haven't met Lily yet, have you? She's Jason's junior at the lab. Her family doesn't have much, but she's hardworking, obedient, and very well educated. She's been helping Jason out at the lab." As she spoke, she gently patted Lily's hand, smiling with squinted eyes and praising her nonstop. Sure, I only had a bachelor's degree. I'd never helped Jason with any experiments. I wasn't the type who obeyed everything people said. When I was 16, my father passed away from overwork. By the time I was 21, my mother followed. Jason's parents used to say I was too young and suggested many times that I temporarily manage our partner company on behalf of the family. But right after graduation, I joined the company. I didn't have any evil uncles or greedy relatives. What I did have were family members I could trust completely. They were helping me sincerely. In just 3 short years, I went from a clueless rookie to someone capable of handling everything on her own. Yet even now, Jason's parents still brought up that same old topic whenever they could. As I looked at his mother's profile, all I could think of was the image of her back when I was a child, how she used to hold me close and tell me to be good. And now she was using Lily to humiliate me. Being too greedy only leaves you with nothing in the end. My phone buzzed inside the pocket of my coat. Sweet fiancé, where are you? Jason was sitting nearby, asking his mother how she knew Lily. She smiled and said maybe Lily could be our bridesmaid. But none of that mattered anymore. I casually replied to Ethan's message at the Miller family estate, then locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. Mrs. Miller, I said calmly, we actually came here today to talk about calling off the engagement between Jason and me. The smile on her face froze instantly. Without a word, her hand withdrew from Lily's. Emily, marriage isn't something to joke about. Tell me, what did Jason do wrong? I'll stand up for you. She moved to sit beside me and reached out, trying to take my hand. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a mocking smile. Mrs. Miller, Jason clearly likes Lily, who, in your own words, is well-educated and obedient. And you like her too. Isn't that just perfect for everyone? The phone in my pocket kept buzzing, making the small patch of skin beneath it tingle, and the ache seemed to reach my heart. Emily, you must be mistaken, Lily said, her voice trembling as she bit her lip, eyes red with tears. Jason and I are just senior and junior lab partners. Jason couldn't take it anymore. Mom, he blurted, Lily and I truly love each other. Mrs. Miller stood up and looked at her son. I've seen girls like her more times than I can count. Jason, go apologize to Emily. She's your girlfriend, your future fiancé. Lily said nothing but stood up and clung to Jason's hand, starting to sniffle. Jason frowned. Mom, don't talk about Lily that way. I'm gonna marry her. Besides, I've never confessed to Emily. We weren't even really a couple. And as for the engagement, it was a mutual decision. 24 years of history, and he summed it all up with, we weren't even really a couple. Trash, absolutely. Mrs. Miller's face turned red with fury as she snapped, she's just a scheming woman trying to climb the ladder. I've seen more of her kind than you have. Jason, go apologize to Emily. So Mrs. Miller could see through Lily after all. Then that only made Jason even dumber. He was the only one completely fooled. Suddenly, everything felt hollow and pointless. I pulled my phone out of my pocket again. Sweet fiancé, 3 unread messages. At the Miller estate? What are you doing there? Are you having second thoughts about marrying me? Let me tell you something. Emily doesn't get to back out. Your mom can wait for me. I had just typed a reply and hadn't even hit send when the phone buzzed again. I'm outside the Miller estate. I got up and walked toward the door, leaving behind the sound of Jason and his mother arguing. I didn't look back. I left them all behind. Ethan was waiting for me outside. The tall, long-legged CEO stood casually by the front of his car, which he'd parked right in front of the Miller estate without a care in the world. So arrogant. When he saw me coming out, he strode toward me. His cedarwood scent enveloped me as he leaned down slightly, casting a gentle arc of shadow from his lashes across his lower eyelids. His eyes drooped at the corners, like a dog that had just been abandoned. He gently hooked his pinky finger around mine and gave it a soft tug, testing the waters. I couldn't help but shoot him a look. But his voice was all swagger. What's the matter? Having second thoughts after all? The emotions I had bottled up since things with Jason began to unravel finally cracked open just a bit. I teased him, and what if I am having second thoughts? I first met Ethan Crane at the grocery store. I had been carefully picking out tomatoes, planning to cook for Jason. When I turned around, there he was, selecting the exact same tomatoes I had. And I had only been picking the smallest, squishiest ones, because Jason could handle those. But Ethan clearly couldn't. Still, he copied me. Later, we often went grocery shopping together. The way he looked at me became increasingly tender. I started to think he fell for me because I knew how to pick produce. That day, he took me to the bridal boutique. In the blink of an eye, the guy who used to go grocery shopping with me had become the man I was supposed to marry. Even now, it still felt like he just wanted someone who could pick vegetables for him. I smiled at him. He tightened his pinky around mine, swinging it a bit more, then looked up with those pleading eyes. So what can I do? He said. Guess I'll just have to stand outside your house in the freezing wind every morning and wait. Who told you not to spoil me? He said with a dramatic pout. Where'd you even learn that? I lifted my hand and tapped him lightly on the head. Because I know how to pick vegetables? What? I laughed and gave his head another pat. Then I turned to leave. Let's go. Since your poor little self needs comforting, we'll go to my place. Adults don't need to spell things out. He never hid his emotions around me. The moment I said that, his whole demeanor lit up. He rushed to get us back to my apartment like a man on a mission. The emotions I'd been trying to bury cracked wide open. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. You're really in a rush. I sent Ethan my location. It was one of those ridiculously expensive villa neighborhoods that had been popping up in recent years. He raised his eyebrows and made a sharp U-turn without a shred of shame. When'd you buy that place? Not exactly on the way, huh? I didn't say a word, just looked at him and smiled faintly. He sped up, jaw clenched tight, focused on the road. That only made me laugh harder. My phone started ringing halfway through the ride. The caller ID showed it was Mrs. Miller. I was already irritated, but out of courtesy, I picked up. Emily, she said immediately, listen to me. Don't take what Jason said to heart. The wedding will still happen as planned. Of course, I didn't take Jason's words to heart, because the wedding was going to happen as planned. I couldn't help but smile again, lips curled. The wedding is still happening, I repeated, my voice calm. There was a brief pause on the other end, like she hadn't expected me to be so agreeable. She praised me, calling me a good girl again and again. I hung up before she could say anything more. That laughing hard. By the time Ethan pulled up smoothly to the front gate, I was laughing so hard I had to hold my stomach. I got out of the car, still wiping tears from my eyes. Uncle Lee, the security guard, hadn't seen me in 2 years, but he recognized me instantly. Is that you, Emily? You've only gotten prettier. My wife just pickled some cucumbers. I'll set aside a jar for you to take tomorrow. I laughed until I was tearing up. Uncle Lee, you look younger every year. I'll come by for them tomorrow, but don't hide the good ones again. I'd grown up here. After work, my dad always loved to play chess with Uncle Lai. His sharp suits never helped, he always lost. Terrible at chess, but obsessed with it anyway. Mom used to send me here to drag him home for dinner. That's when I'd sneak candies from other moms who weren't mine, candies my own mom never allowed me to have. But I got cavities, and the truth caught up to me. The next time I came around, Uncle Lee's wife rubbed her hands nervously and stammered. In the end, it was Uncle Lee who stepped up. His face flushed as he muttered, Emily, we're out of candy. Liars. I had seen my candy jar in the corner. Because of that betrayal, I didn't talk to them for 3 whole months. Now when I look back, it's funny how silly I was back then, so ridiculously gullible. Ethan tugged on my arm, pulling me along. I was laughing so hard I could barely speak. So dumb, I mumbled between laughs. And Mrs. Miller really believes I'm going to marry her son? I kept giggling. I was so dumb as a kid, and my dad, he was dumb too. Never won a single chess match. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I laughed. Finally, Ethan stopped in front of a house and looked at the GPS to make sure we were at the right place. My smile didn't fade. He took my hand and pressed it to the keypad of the door lock. Inside, he gently pushed me onto the couch. He bent down, eyes dark and serious. Stop laughing, he murmured. You're driving me crazy. As he spoke, he brushed away the tears on my cheeks with the pad of his finger. My laughter died down, but the chaos inside me only grew worse. My thoughts were a jumbled mess, like a tidal wave threatening to swallow me whole. His finger lingered on my face, warm and slow. The atmosphere turned charged, electric. He stared at me intently, his breath warm against my skin. Emily, do you know why we came back here? His finger traced gently over my cheek. I looked up at him. Of course I know, I said and leaned in, pressing my lips to his. The storm inside me suddenly found its release. He let out a low chuckle, his chest vibrating with it. The sound was rich, deep, devastatingly sexy. In an instant, the control shifted to him. At first, I tried to keep up with his pace. Eventually, I gave up entirely. He could kiss me however he wanted. I slumped against his shoulder, panting, head spinning. Every thought I had been drowned out by the pull between us. His hand slid under my shirt and found the small of my back. I shivered all over. If I married Ethan, I wouldn't be losing anything. Love or money, you've got to win at least one of them, right? Once I realized that, I completely relaxed. His hand pressed firmly against my back. What kind of weird kink was that? Was he trying to rub dirt off me or something? Before I could dwell on it, Ethan suddenly withdrew his hand, stood up, and clenched his jaw. Got any alcohol? What a flashy guy. Second floor, right turn, left-hand side, it's my dad's collection. He came back down with an armful of bottles in no time. He popped one open cleanly, didn't even let it breathe, and poured it straight into a glass. Then he shoved the glass toward me like it was some sort of challenge. Seriously, he said with a sneer. Ever since you left the Miller estate, you've been laughing like it hurts more than crying. If something's bothering you, don't hold it in. Or don't say anything, just let it all go with the drink. My dress was halfway off, and this man wanted to have a heart-to-heart? I made a face. Even if I die today, I'm not drinking that. But apparently I did. When I opened my eyes the next morning, Ethan was lying next to me. I immediately looked down to check what I was wearing, same crumpled dress from the night before. Ethan was snoring like a pig. I gave him a hard kick. You didn't even bother changing my clothes. What kind of dominant CEO are you? There were faint dark circles under his eyes. Miss Lynn, do you even remember hugging the rice cooker and running around drunk? I blinked. You shattered a wine bottle. You clawed at my shirt and wouldn't let go. Total blackout. If I don't remember it, then it never happened. I ended up sitting in his overly luxurious Maybach, hugging a jar of pickled cucumbers. The car smelled like vinegar, a ridiculous combination, me and the self-proclaimed pickle prince. Back at the apartment, my phone finally charged and turned on. Messages poured in. I didn't think you'd actually go through with the wedding. Jason and I have been together for a long time now. Don't listen to what they say. You're the only daughter-in-law my mom ever wanted. Emily, I'm sorry. I know you've known about me and Lily for a while. If you want the wedding, go ahead with it. I just hope you'll let me go soon. I forced myself to read through every single message, one after another. I was being gracious by even giving them the time of day. Just Jason Miller, acting like he was some kind of prize. Please. I didn't even want him anymore. What I did want was the bidding round happening in 2 weeks. That was the real prize. Real money, real competition. Sweet fiancé, the message read. Take a look at these venues and let me know which one you like for the wedding. Photos. More photos. These are the ones that need to be booked a year in advance. Ethan, aka Sweet Fiancé, was out here throwing money like it grew on trees. Living up to his CEO title, huh? I let him throw all the money he wanted. Let's be honest, this was wedding venue snatching at its finest. And it wasn't just complicated, it was borderline aggressive. Not only did we have to coordinate with the hotel, we also had to shamelessly negotiate with the couple who had originally booked that date. I didn't lift a finger. Ethan's thick skin handled it all. The hotel was secured the next day, his money under my name. It stirred quite the buzz. Everyone was talking about how the beloved daughter of the Lynn family was spending wildly for love. Even Mrs. Miller, for the first time ever, gave me a call. Emily, good girl, she said, voice full of affection. I knew you were the one who truly cared about Jason. Don't worry. You'll always be the Miller family's daughter-in-law. After she hung up, Jason called too, sounding like he was swimming in regret. Emily, I've officially joined the Miller Corporation. I didn't respond. My fingers were busy tapping away on the keyboard, prepping for the bid. Jason let out a deep sigh on the other end. Emily, I heard about the hotel situation. Consider it a memento. But really, you should let me go. I was speechless. I'm over here preparing for a major bid, and he's playing Tragic X. There was a brief pause. Emily, he said again, you don't need to help the Miller family prepare anymore. I'll be going to this bid myself. Even more speechless. So I was supposed to help your family win this thing, and now you think I won't fight you for it? You think you're ready? You'll get shredded by those old vultures in that room. 2 weeks flew by. During that time, Ethan's texts never stopped. The wedding was already taking shape. So when I saw him standing in front of the bidding venue, I was completely stunned. The man had been managing every single detail of our wedding. How the hell did he still have time for this? Mr. Crane, I said, raising an eyebrow. So you're interested in this bidding project too? Ethan gave me a slight smile and leaned in close. His voice dropped low. Just came to see how my dazzling fiancé crushes the competition. I was just starting to get goosebumps from Ethan's whisper when Jason's voice cut through it. Emily, what are you doing here? Of course, Lily was still by his side. She even smiled and politely greeted me, Miss Lynn. What composure. I gave Lily a long look. Jason seemed like he wanted to prove something to me. Emily, I don't need your help this time. I can handle it on my own. I didn't respond. Ethan's cool voice slid in between us. Emily, huh? Saying it like you two are so close. Mr. Miller, maybe just stick with calling her Miss Lynn. Jason had just joined the company, but apparently hadn't bothered to look up the local business owners. His face was blank, completely clueless. You're Emily? Let's go, Ethan said, taking my wrist and pulling me into the building. We found seats in the middle. I leaned over and muttered, Don't make a scene. Ethan, obedient as ever, let go of my hand. I looked over at him and added, I've been preparing for this bid for half a year. Even a CEO shouldn't interfere and mess up the rhythm. I glanced around and spotted a few familiar faces, nodded politely. The bidding began quickly. It was a development site near the bay, originally part of the old district. Recent government support had pushed development in the area. The current landholder, realizing they couldn't handle the project alone, decided to split the lot into 14 parcels. We had all been preparing for this for over 6 months. The first 9 plots were closer to residential zones in the city and sold around $1.5 billion each. Great for building international trade supermarkets. Pretty solid deals. Jason snagged 2 of those plots. But the ones that caught my eye were the coastal plots. 2 parcels, one 11,908 square meters, the other 12,890. Right next to the sea, surrounded by developed ports. Now those were the real treasures. When I bid $1.5 billion, my hand was trembling. Someone else shouted $5 billion, more than double the initial asking price. The entire room went quiet. No one dared to raise the price immediately. Classic me. When I make a move, I get what I came for. Soon someone broke the silence. $5.5 billion. I raised my hand immediately. $7 billion. The room erupted. One of the more seasoned developers who knew me looked over and chuckled. Miss Lynn, you've got guts. Everyone knows those plots are guaranteed profit, probably more than we can even estimate. Then a rep from GIE Group joined the game. $7.1 billion. I didn't hesitate. $8 billion. I looked at the older businessman who'd just spoken. We're the younger generation. We're supposed to take risks. I caught Ethan watching me, eyes burning with intensity, like I was the only thing in the room. He always did enjoy watching me compete for something. I exhaled slowly. GIE Group had just let me have it. They gave me that one. But this wasn't break time. I ignored Ethan's gaze and forced myself to sit up straighter. There was still one more plot. In my mind, I'd budgeted $18 billion total for the 2 prime plots. If this next one exceeded $10 billion, I'd have to consider other tactics. $5 billion. I looked toward the bidder, a tiny, unknown company. This wasn't ideal. Jason called out $6 billion. So the Millers wanted to take a bite of this too? In your dreams. I glanced at Jason from a distance. He was whispering to someone beside him, but even from here I could see the struggle in his eyes. Jason was ambitious, always chasing high risks for high returns, but he was easily swayed. When he first wanted to study chemistry, his mom strongly opposed it, but his dad supported him, hoping the discipline of lab work would build his character. Jason had told me more than once that his father never wanted him in the family business. Now that he'd finally joined the company, he was desperate to prove himself. The 2 plots he already won had inflated his confidence. Of course, he'd want this third one to seal the deal. I glanced again at the unfamiliar face Jason was speaking with. Someone I didn't recognize. Jason always had high standards and a bit of arrogance. Plus, after just scoring 2 major wins, he was walking on air. What could he possibly be discussing with a no-name company? Then it hit me. He wasn't spending from the Miller family's reserves anymore. He was borrowing. No way they would pour all their liquid funds into this. Jason had probably already blown most of the family money on those 2 plots. That meant he was betting borrowed money on this one. Idiot. I raised my paddle. $7 billion. Jason turned to look at me. I couldn't read the emotion in his eyes. And I didn't care. This plot wasn't going to Miss Lynn without a fight. Mr. Chen gave a casual smile. $10 billion. I glanced at him, picked up my phone, and sent a message to Jason. Borrowing $5 billion from me under the title of your fiancé. No interest. Since you're hesitating, let me give you a hand. You chose this path. Don't blame me for it. Ethan let out a soft chuckle beside me. I turned to shoot him a look, about to warn him not to cause trouble, but before I could say anything, he smiled brightly at me. Then he took my hand, gently hooking our pinkies and swaying them together playfully. We'd already reached 10 billion. If the price went any higher, it would push past the max I had mentally budgeted. I ran my fingers along the edge of my bidding paddle. What if Mr. Chen had also set 10 billion as his ceiling? As I hesitated, Ethan nudged my hand slightly, then boldly raised the paddle. 10 billion in one. I nearly laughed. If he wanted to test the waters, then sure, he'd done it. Mr. Chen, probably baffled by why a guy from a new media company would even be fighting him for this land, still raised his paddle calmly. 11 billion. A soft murmur rippled through the room. Now we were officially in a bidding war. Only someone like Mr. Chen, whose business involved large-scale shipping and fisheries, could afford to throw out such high numbers. Sure, the return on this land would be significant, but it'd still take years to rebuild, renovate, and redevelop the port. The real test would be whether his company could survive until the profits rolled in. My phone was still on silent. I had a feeling, so I took it out and checked. Sure enough. Jason. Emily, thank you. I won't let you down. Then, out loud, Jason raised the bid again. 12 billion. I smirked. You really think I'm still hung up on you? I'm not even your fiancé anymore, and you actually dared to borrow from me? Ethan gave my hand a squeeze and let out a low laugh. I looked up at him. He gave my fingers another gentle press. Mr. Chen's smile faded as he turned toward Jason. Young Master Miller. Jason looked a little flustered. In the end, that piece of land went to Jason. After the bidding ended, Mr. Chen clapped Jason on the shoulder and laughed. You two really are united as husband and wife. When you're ready to order ships later, be sure to come to me. Jason blushed. Of course, of course. Mr. Chen patted his shoulder again, half joking, half serious. All right then, we'll sign the contract this afternoon. Don't run off. Jason was completely thrown off, frozen in place. I couldn't help bursting into laughter. He'd borrowed 5 billion from me, and with the kind of profit margins in this project, the Miller family was going to lose at least half of what they could have earned. And now he dared to agree to Mr. Chen's terms? Mr. Chen caught my laughter and turned to me. Miss Lin, you too, don't you run off. I'd have to be an idiot not to. I smiled. That won't work. I really need to run to the restroom. As soon as I came out, I saw Ethan leaning against the wall next to the door. His fingertips were dotted with faint red. What are you doing here, Mr. Crane? Before I could finish, Ethan cut me off. I'm jealous, and I'm upset. He said it while extinguishing his cigarette and flicking it into the trash bin by the bathroom door. Then he rested his head lightly on my shoulder. The smoky scent, mixed with his signature cedarwood cologne, hit me hard and made me a little dizzy. Stand up straight, I said, and he really did. I'm upset, he repeated, almost like he was reporting to a boss. I'm jealous. He hooked our pinkies again, swaying them like a sulky child. I looked at his handsome face and chuckled. So what should I do about that, fiancé? Right on cue, I stroked his ego perfectly. His expression went blank for a second. Then he tilted his head away, ears blushing bright red, and started swinging my pinky even more aggressively. Kiss, he whispered, pointing toward the bathroom door. Right here. What kind of weird habit is that? Still, I stood on tiptoe, wrapped my arms around his neck, and kissed him squarely on the lips. Consider that your reward for raising the paddle, I said with a smirk. Dazed from the kiss, I asked him. So when Jason raised the bid, why were you laughing? He shrugged. He borrowed 20 billion from that little company next to him. I blinked. And? It's mine. I collapsed against him, laughing uncontrollably. Then I heard a stunned voice behind me. Emily? I turned around and saw Jason. Staring at me in disbelief, he demanded, Who is he? My fiancé, I answered calmly. Jason clenched his teeth. Emily, you can't just go marry someone else because we broke off the engagement. Ethan's grip around my pinky tightened slightly. I didn't hesitate. I slipped my whole hand into his. What Ethan and I had was real. Our love had nothing to do with our engagement. That engagement had been arranged by our parents. Back then, we were young and naive, so I returned Jason's words to him exactly as he had once thrown them at me. But he didn't seem as calm as I had been. His eyes locked on my hand and Ethan's, and he looked completely rattled. "Emily," he stammered. "What are you doing?" He was panicked. "After everything we've been through over the last 20 years, you're really just going to walk away?" I smiled at him. Jason looked like he just couldn't process it. His jaw clenched. Even his neck stiffened slightly, a visible ripple of resistance through his whole body. What was this? This was too much for him to handle. Had he ever thought about what would happen to me after the engagement was broken, when he cheated? Did he consider our 20-something years of history when he was getting cozy with another woman? Now he couldn't even handle seeing me hold Ethan's hand? I didn't need him acting like he was doing what was best for me. I didn't need him abandoning me only to turn around and act like some tragic lover with deep feelings. He suddenly stormed toward me like he was concerned. "You think that kind of playboy really loves you? He's just after your money." Ethan started to raise his hand, but I was quicker. I grabbed his arm and pushed it down. "I like handling my own business," I said calmly. "Then what about your little sweetheart?" I shot back at Jason. His body tensed instantly, like I'd hit a nerve. Exactly what I thought. Trash. He didn't say a word, just stood there. I turned and pulled Ethan with me. "Go enjoy your true love. Don't embarrass yourself here." And as it turns out, that girl was after his money. With 24 days left until the wedding, Jason's mom gave her a chunk of cash. That so-called sweet girl put on a little act like she couldn't take the pressure and ran off in the middle of the night. How did I know? Because I bought her the plane ticket. 14 days before the wedding, Mr. Miller returned. The company had suddenly acquired 3 prime pieces of land, one of which was especially valuable. The whole company was singing Jason's praises. Of course, that all made its way back to me. That same day, Mr. Miller called me. "Emily, the wedding's almost here, right? Let's find some time to go over the details." No mention of the bidding war. No mention of Jason cheating. Not a word about Lily. The first thing he brought up? The wedding. His tone was firm, the kind of pressure that came from being used to being in control. "This wedding between you and Jason was decided by both families," he said. "It's not something you can just call off." I was lying on my couch at home, watching Ethan wash strawberries in the kitchen. Broad shoulders, long legs, picture perfect. "No need to discuss, Mr. Miller," I said. "Everything on my end for the wedding is nearly done." There was a beat of silence on the other end of the line. I could tell he thought I was backing down. A moment later, his voice came through, slightly lowered. "All right, then send me a copy of the wedding plan. Jason made a mistake, but as the future daughter-in-law of the Miller family, you need to be the bigger person." Ethan walked out just then, placed the plate of strawberries on the table, and leaned down toward me, clearly having overheard the call. He thought it was Jason on the line. His voice was so soft it could melt butter. "Who are you talking to, Emily?" he asked sweetly, and then casually popped a strawberry into my mouth. I shot him a sideways glare, and to my surprise, the call still hadn't ended. "Jason was just momentarily tempted," Mr. Miller continued on the other end. "And maybe you were briefly distracted by someone new too. That's normal. But in the end, we're still one family." Ethan gently placed another strawberry between my lips. I didn't say anything, and the line went quiet again for a moment. Then, sensing he was losing ground, Mr. Miller softened his tone. "Jason knows he messed up, but it's not like he did anything serious. He just got a little too close with a female classmate. You two have grown up together since childhood. Women need to be a little more forgiving. That's what marriage is about, isn't it?" I chewed on the strawberry and suddenly remembered the time both of our families lived in that old villa neighborhood. Jason had once looked at his mom, smiling so gently, so tenderly. But now the Miller family had so many illegitimate children, you couldn't even count them on one hand. I chuckled to myself. Mrs. Miller really is generous. But what gave them the right to demand that I, Emily Lynn, be the one to forgive? Why did I have to be the gracious one? Forget it. I'd be sure to send her an invitation. Don't be late, I thought. 3 days before the wedding, the invitations were sent out. Red envelopes edged in gold foil, handwritten in flowing calligraphy with the names Emily Lynn and Ethan Crane. Everyone, close friends, distant relatives, people I barely even knew, were all talking about it. How did the Lynn family's precious daughter end up marrying Mr. Crane? Wasn't she the one who splurged on a luxury hotel not long ago for Jason Miller? I made sure to send 3 copies directly to the Miller family. That night, Ethan clung to the invitation like an idiot, refusing to let go. Honestly, I still thought something was wrong with him. How could someone fall in love with me just because I knew how to pick vegetables? The night the invitations were delivered, Jason showed up at my apartment in the middle of the night, banging on the door. Ethan stumbled out of the guest room, half asleep, wrapped his arms around me, and whispered, "Don't go." I messaged Jason to get lost. The next morning when I opened the door, there he was, sitting in the hallway, completely soaked by the rain. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low. "You're really going to marry him?" I looked at the dark circles under his eyes. He clearly hadn't been doing well. That plot of land had already broken ground. I'd gone to inspect the site myself the day construction started. Only then did the Miller board find out that the land wasn't solely theirs. A smaller, unknown company held a stake in it too. Even worse, Jason had actually signed a partnership deal with Mr. Chen. The foundation hadn't even been laid, and he'd already bought 200 ships from him. High and mighty as always, Jason had always looked down on business people, only to get completely screwed over this time. I looked at him and smiled. Yup. He rubbed his temples. "Emily, I'm willing to let the past go. Didn't you always want to marry me? It's not too late." My grip on the door handle tightened instinctively. So he did know everything. Memories flashed through my mind. When I was 16 and I'd handed him that candy like it was no big deal. When I was 17 and poured my heart into picking out the perfect watch for his birthday. Those sleepless nights when I first realized he was cheating, doubting myself, questioning everything. All the meals I'd made for him, only to feed the damn dog instead. Back then, I still had hope in him. I stared at him, trying to match the man in front of me with the Jason I once loved. When I was 16, after my dad passed away, Jason had crossed the entire city just to buy me a slice of my favorite milk cake. That night, after my father's funeral, he'd placed the cake into my hand. That single slice of cake, one that gave me food poisoning, mind you, ended up binding me to him for 8 whole years. I really was cheap. "Emily," he said, "I know you've known about the affair all along. I messed up. But we're even now, aren't we? Even?" I let go of the doorknob. Emotions swelled up in my chest until I couldn't hold it back anymore. I slapped him across the face. "Even?" I snapped. "What do you take me for? Some dog you can summon or dismiss whenever you want?" My palm was starting to sting. He froze. I slapped him again. This time it burned. "You think you're someone important? You got away with everything because I loved you. That's the only reason you had the nerve to act like you were untouchable." He clutched his face. There was no trace of the elegant, well-mannered man he usually pretended to be. "This engagement was arranged by our parents," he growled. "You'll marry me whether you want to or not, unless you want your dead parents dragged through the mud." "So the bidding war was your trap," I whispered. My dad had been right. I should never have backed down to him. I thought of my mother, frail and fading, gripping my hand before she died. "Jason is a good boy, Emily. Don't cry. I'll make you your favorite food tomorrow. I still want to see you both." "Get out," I snapped, slamming the door in his face. I turned and saw Ethan standing in the living room holding a glass of water. His expression was calm and composed. "Dinner's ready," he said. He didn't ask. I didn't tell. I sat down at the table and took a cautious sip of the milk. Coconut milk. My nose burned. Finally, Ethan couldn't hold it in anymore. "Emily," he said gently, "what did Jason want?" Even Jason had forgotten I was lactose intolerant. The tears welled up fast, pooling in my eyes so quickly that I couldn't stop them. I tried to blink them away, tried to hold it together, but they still fell. Huge, heavy drops splashing against the table. Ethan panicked. I'm not listening. You handle everything. Don't cry," he begged. Through tear-filled eyes I looked up at him. "Don't leave me," I whispered. "If you do, I'll really start crying. I've worked so hard for this, for us." Tears still falling, I managed a shaky smile. "Ethan, I'm glad it's you I'm marrying." On the eve of the wedding, Ethan was a frantic mess. Candy boxes, welcome gifts, red envelopes, the dress, the shoes, he had to check every single detail himself. His parents only landed that night. Mrs. Crane stepped out of the terminal in a crisp, tailored suit. As soon as she spotted Ethan, she raised her hand and smacked his arm. "You little brat, why didn't you tell us earlier?" "You have no idea," she added. "Your dad and I nearly thought we were seeing ghosts when Auntie Chin called us yesterday." Maybe it was because Ethan had arranged the whole wedding so smoothly that I'd actually forgotten about Mr. and Mrs. Crane entirely. I was just about to speak when Ethan hugged his mother and smoothly stopped her hand. "Mom, I'm getting married tomorrow. I don't want to let go of you. I'm nervous." "Nervous? You? Go away." She waved him off. "The bride isn't even nervous. What are you fussing about?" Mrs. Crane gave him a good shove and rolled her eyes. "And quit acting like this in public. Where's your cold CEO demeanor now?" She brushed past him and came straight toward me. "Emily Lynn, right? I've heard of you. Last year you snatched a project from the Crane family," she said, smiling. Ethan wouldn't shut up about it. "You're sharp." I paused for a second. That did sound familiar. Too bad I'd taken that project on behalf of the Miller family. Otherwise, we could have worked with the Cranes. I was just about to apologize when she cut me off. "Emily, mind if I call you that?" "You did great. Someone needs to keep that boy in check." We were still standing by the entrance. She didn't reach for my hand or pretend to be affectionate. The distance between us was that of strangers meeting for the first time. But still, she looked me in the eye and sincerely said, "You did great." Maybe it was because Ethan had been spoiling me lately, but I felt a sting at the tip of my nose. I almost cried again. Thankfully, Mr. Crane called out from behind, "Come inside already. What are you doing standing out there?" I turned around quickly and blinked away that one stubborn tear. At 4 a.m. on the wedding day, the makeup artist had already started getting things ready. Mrs. Crane sat nearby, stubbornly refusing to leave, quietly watching every stroke on my face. At 5 a.m., one of Ethan's assistants whispered something to her and left again. But she stayed, eyes still fixed on me. At 7 a.m., just as the final touch-ups were happening, she stopped the artist, stood up, and walked over holding the wedding veil. But instead of helping me put it on, she reached for the comb nearby. My heart skipped a beat. 1 stroke to the end, may your life be smooth. 2 strokes, may your hair turn white together. 3 strokes, may you have many children and grandchildren. I looked up at her. "Emily," she said, voice steady. "I'll go wait on that rascal's side, wait for you to call me Mom." At 7:30 a.m. I picked up my phone. The first push notification hit me like a punch to the gut. Heiress abandons hospitalized parents, ditches fiancé for a richer man. Bottom right corner, a leopard logo. Comment section, tens of thousands of replies. I knew it. No way someone runs a company that big alone without being cutthroat. She looks so innocent. Wow. Total stranger, but disrespecting her parents' final wishes is so wrong. I stared at the headline. My first thought wasn't how to fix it. It was, where's Ethan? Where are his parents? Did they see this? I immediately called my assistant. As soon as the line connected, she said, "Emily, don't worry about this. Focus on your wedding. Let me and Chen handle it." "Wait, Chen? Who's that?" "Mr. Crane's PR assistant." "When did the Cranes find out about this?" "From the very beginning. We're already coordinating with public relations. Don't let this nonsense ruin your mood. We're also trying to locate Miss Xiao, the one connected to Jason Miller." Cheating and still trying to play the victim? Unbelievable. Before I could even finish that sentence, the other end hung up. At 7:45, the sound of firecrackers erupted outside. I quickly sent a short video to my assistant, footage of Sophie, taken before she ran, clarifying everything. I had paid her $2 million for it. Once it was sent, I set my phone down and sat upright. The firecrackers outside sounded like they were being set off right on my chest. Each bang seemed to strike in rhythm with my heartbeat. 8. The commotion outside grew louder. "The groom's here. The groom's here." This was the man I would be spending the rest of my life with. Even if we divorced, I'd walk away with more than enough. 8:15. The door opened. Through the layers of white veil, I could vaguely see Ethan's face. He said, "Nana, I'm here to take you home." As I leaned onto his back, I remembered what Mrs. Crane had said earlier. "I'll be waiting for you on the other side." These were truly good people. Maybe, just this once, I got lucky and found something real. The wedding went on as scheduled. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the three members of the Miller family, faces stiff and pale. That video didn't just have Sophie's confession. It also included photos of Michael cheating and an audio clip of him threatening me. Meanwhile, the Miller Group was already facing a major liquidity crisis over that piece of land. At a time like this, with the stock market sliding, even if they didn't crash completely, they'd at least shed a layer of skin. My uncle walked me down the aisle and handed me over to Ethan. His eyes were red with emotion. I thought I'd feel nothing walking down the aisle, but I was wrong. A storm of feelings rose inside me, so overwhelming I couldn't even name them. I silently murmured to my parents, "Mom, Dad." Ethan held my hand as we took the final steps together. "Mom, Dad, can you see me now? I'm getting married. Maybe I'm really marrying someone incredible." As the officiant read the vows, I looked into Ethan's steady eyes and silently introduced him to my parents. "Mom, this is Ethan. He respects me. He's never tried to control my decisions." "Ethan Crane, do you take Miss Emily Lynn to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Ethan looked into my eyes. "I do." Then the officiant turned to me. "Emily Lynn, do you take Mr. Ethan Crane to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "Mom, I married a good man. You don't have to worry about me anymore. You don't have to cook my favorite food. He will. You don't have to remind me not to drink milk. He'll prepare something else for me." "I do." That night, between breaths mixed with the scent of wine, his hand found its way beneath my dress and touched the small of my back. I tried to stay clear-headed. "Why me?" I asked. "Just because I know how to pick vegetables." The same question. But this time, Ethan finally understood what I meant. His hand still moved lower, and I let out a breathy gasp. I bit his shoulder. He chuckled lowly, teasing, "You really don't know how charming you were back then." Bonus scene. Sophie was right, I did approach Michael for money. But what she didn't know was that the entire thing had been a transaction from the start. That's how I made a living, through trades like these. Ethan paid me $5 million to seduce Michael. I still remember how this usually cold and decisive CEO hesitantly asked, "Just try it. See what kind of person he is. No need to drug him, just see how he reacts. Don't go too far." I thought he was some kind of treasure. Turns out Michael fell for it instantly. What a bore. What was interesting was his fiancée. I called her, sent her videos, and she ignored every single one. But when it came time to lay it all out, she struck hard and clean. She was never interested in marrying into wealth. I took Ethan's $5 million, and I took Mrs. Miller's $10 million. That was probably more than I'd ever earn in my entire life. After I got the money, I went on vacation. People should know when to leave the game. The night before I left, that heiress asked to meet. I thought it'd be like the usual gigs, confrontation, tears, and eventually forgiving the cheating man. But when I saw her, her expression was calm, almost detached. "Record a video confirming Michael cheated," she said. I sat down and put on my usual performance. "Miss Lynn, what is this for?" "Michael and I are in love. I'm just leaving to avoid the pressure." She didn't react, just stirred her coffee, took a sip. Suddenly, I remembered how picky she had been with coffee when we first met. $1 million, she said. I paused. "Miss Lynn, $2 million is more than enough." "I'll leave," I said, pretending to get up. "Deal." I filmed the video right there and made her buy me a plane ticket. I needed to feel safe. As I got up, I asked, "How did you know?" She was texting someone and said without looking up, "You were too cautious. No matter how much Mrs. Miller tried to provoke you, all you did was cry next to Michael. Even when he finally acknowledged you, you never once said a word. That's how I knew." Of course I was cautious, I thought. If I'd overacted, I wouldn't have gotten a dime from Mrs. Miller. When she left, I sipped the now cold coffee in front of me. It was bitter. I still preferred the coffee from the first cafe. 3 months later, when I returned, I went to that cafe again. Suddenly, someone grabbed my wrist from behind. "Sophie, this is all your fault." Michael's voice. He looked disheveled, wrinkled suit, messy hair, swollen face. I smiled. For the past 3 months, I'd been keeping tabs on them. The Miller board had poured money into that land deal. No matter how hard Mr. Miller tried to stop it, it didn't work. As soon as construction began, the Lynn family sent inspectors. Only then did the Miller elders realize they had spent all that effort building someone else's empire. Michael's cash flow collapsed. Instead of hiding, he showed up at my wedding in a full-blown scene. Good thing I had filmed that confession, or the public might have thought he was the broken-hearted hero. He had so many illegitimate siblings, but none could step in, because Mr. Miller had been removed from power. I looked at the man in front of me, eyes bloodshot, desperate, and I suddenly remembered the way he once leaned over the lab table toward me, gentle and quiet. I smiled. "Who are you again?"